First of all, welcome everybody to the Blended Stories series that Paul was obviously just articulating there. And this particular one is around blended templates. So the whole idea, I think, when I looked at the advert, if you've never created blended or want to look, what does good look like, then I'm sure that we'll sort of touch on that. And obviously, we've brought some expertise really to talk about that. But don't forget, equally, everyone in this room is an expert as well. So we'd love to hear about your experiences, your ideas, and your ambitions for the future as well. But before we get too deep, I would like to hand over the mic to our sponsor for today's blended stories, Jan. Would you like to give us a bit of an insight to Emissio?
Well, thank you, Paul. And by the way, let me say welcome back, Paul, to hosting this show for this event because um, we started it together, and it's good that the longevity is there again with you hosting.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
with regards to the sponsor note, yes, Emissio. What does Emissio do? We help training providers make more training impact. Now, what does that mean? Basically, what that means is that we focus on quality and quantity of that. Quality means the quality of the training, the design, the creation, the delivery, measurement of impact, training impact. That's also a big part of that, and I'll mention that a little bit later as well. We help companies with their content strategy, but on the quantity side, also scaling up the business, the training business, and that means quite often getting more learners for training companies. How to scale, how to enter new markets, there's different business models we help with launching products. Our most popular workshop is probably pricing strategy. So we do all these, we help with all these kind of things. To be a bit more concrete, we're a learning tech business, so we do learning platforms. We um, resell the new Spring blended learning platform. We also have Emissio SIP, which I'll mention a bit more detail. We do content, whether we create bespoke content for training companies that want to first see how it's done, what good looks like, and then maybe later do it themselves, actually. We have content libraries, and we have a number of services that goes from workshops to onboarding, different things that we help with for training companies. On the left there, you see the word research because we like an evidence-based approach. So we do that. And on the right, you see community. We take that evidence-based approach and then we share it with the community. And what we're doing here is actually a good example of that. So research might mean that we actually commission research ourselves. You see on the left here, you see this picture of a report that we did, UK training provider trends. This is from last year. We did this together with University of Oxford. And on the right, an example of case studies. We collect case studies. We help write case studies. Sometimes we do it for our customers. And actually, the one on the right here is an example where we took this case study, we then submitted it for an award, and together we won silver for blended learning last year at the Learning Technologies Awards. And then the sharing of that, well, these webinars are how we share that. Every month we do blended stories as a webinar where we take a topic. Today it's about designing blended templates, or designing blended learning. It is a different topic every month. But we also do a conference. The last conference was actually last month, 17 October, you can see here. And we're already busy preparing the next one in October 2025. So keep an eye on that. Uh, I promise you to say something about Emissio SIP. That's our new platform that we're launching. What is that? Well, it's about measuring training impact. So, training needs analysis. It's for training providers to help their customers create a training needs analysis, get data from the learner's knowledge and skill levels, and keep that going, not just a one time, but also post delivery of your training. So that's what we're doing. We're in the process of launching that. There is still an opportunity to join the first mover program to trial it with your customers. If you want to know more of that, just send us an email. That's about it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Jan. And I'm actually noticed, I think that was probably the fastest this year. So congratulations on that. He's learning well. As I mentioned at the beginning, today, obviously, we run these events for industry by industry. And that obviously gives me the opportunity and pleasure, obviously, to introduce Ciara today. Ciara is obviously from County of Galway. And Ciara, perhaps I'd like to pass the mic to yourself. Perhaps there's a little bit of an insight to yourself, and then we've got some questions that we can take you through for the rest of this journey.
Yeah, no, delighted to be here. So thanks to Paul and Jan for inviting me. Yeah, I'm over in what is a very unusual sunny Galway. Normally we're notorious for the rain over in the west of Ireland, getting hit by the Atlantic. So we'll take that win. So I'm a learning experience designer. That's what we're going by this weather, sometimes called instructional designer, learning designer, learning architect, loads of different terms going around at the moment with that. But I've been working in the industry for over 15 years, originally starting actually in a software development mode and just kind of getting into the learning design there. So loving, the technology and being able to combine that and my learning experiences there. I'm currently leading the learning experience design team in Amplify Infrastructure, where we specialize in designing blended learning solutions for large scale projects in the infrastructure and utilities sectors. I've also worked with multinationals and startups as well, consulting and helping on their setting up their blended and migrating from an in-person face-to-face to a more on-prem, or sorry, to a more blended approach, even some taken completely online as well. So today's webinar, I'm excited to just share my experiences and
Mhm.
insights on templates, how you can streamline, just get started, where I've seen values in it. But I want to make it collaborative as well. So, please come off mute or pop in anything into the chat. If
Yeah.
you have any feedback or thoughts or questions, I love to learn. And as I said, I'm only sharing my experiences. I'm sure you have a lot of value to add there as well.
Yeah, Ciara, thank you so much for that. And really, in the, should we say, the best way of delivering this, we want your participation. So, really, from my point of view, just to start getting you warmed up in some respects, if you could just perhaps put in the chat, if for this point in time, that have you ever created any form of blended learning? Perhaps you could put a thumbs up in the chat. But if you haven't, put a thumbs down, because it's really good to understand in some respects. So, this is not my gladiator theme. But I'm just saying that if you have done blended learning, great. If you haven't, it's downwards. So if you could do that, it'd be really good just to understand where we are today, and hopefully we can then personalize this session today very much for you as well. So James, I just saw that come through. Brilliant. So we may bring in your expertise later on in this session. While that's actually kicking off, and one thing I would like to do is perhaps start with some questions that I'm quite often asked as well. Is that, do you know what? Janice, come on. Anyway, I'm sure it'll be a thumbs up by the time we finish this. But I think what I've experienced over the years of working in the training industry, and specifically working with training providers, is, do you know what? We are great at what we do. We deliver 3-day programs, 5-day programs, or anything like that. And we heard all this noise, should we say, about, first of all, it was about e-learning, it was about this, and the other. Then blended is very much come to the fore these days. But it's sort of, what do I do if I've got this 3 or 5 day program? Is it the fact I just pick up my workbooks, my job aids, my PowerPoint presentation, just throw it online? I think it's a little bit, we've moved on from that point of view. But Ciara, I would love to hear some of your experiences of perhaps a situation where, do you know what? I need you to educate me about blended learning. We always have this trouble. What is blended learning? And it does mean a lot of things to different people. And I know, Jan, we talk about it very much. It's in the design of, it doesn't happen by chance type of thing. But Ciara, perhaps you could perhaps talk to that example where literally I do what I do really well. I've got the experience. I can deliver. I'm a trainer. I'm a facilitator. But how do I take all that expertise and perhaps do something different for once? and put it online, but make it blended, and perhaps some of the benefits of doing that. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of the pitfalls as well, because there's no such thing as a magic, dust that this
Yeah.
happens by magic. Perhaps you could perhaps give us an example of a situation where you've been presented with that challenge, and perhaps how you've done recommendations and shown them, what does good look like.
Yeah, and I was kind of, I don't know, was it fortunate, but to be in the transition kind of hit when things literally overnight had to go online, and what would we move over? What could we do? What could we push, online and so forth. But just to clarify as well, what is blended learning? So, there's a lot of different terms and that get thrown around and different interpretations of it. But really, what blended learning is, it represents that kind of thoughtful integration. I think the key word here is thoughtful integration of digital tools and face-to-face interactions into a seamless, effective learning experience that just goes beyond just the in-person or online, and leveraging the strengths of each. And what often gets thrown around is, I see a really cool tool. Let's put our e-learning, or let's put everything up on that. But that's often the biggest pitfall, where people choose the technology over what we call the pedagogy, or the learning, or the reason, or the rationale behind it. Um, Worked in organizations where, the stakeholder, the owner has said, I've bought this really cool tool. Let's you put this, let's get everything transferred over to it. And you're like, well, where's the value in that? So that's kind of just what blended learning is. It's really that thoughtful integration. And knowing that then kind of helps streamline where and how you go online and what you put in blended. Because with pushing everything onto online post-COVID, or during COVID, we kind of pushed everything, and people are like, oh, it didn't work. But I think that thoughtful integration wasn't there. And it's looking at what you deliver and what makes sense to put online. So for instance, there was one organization that I worked with where it came in, the whole idea is let's push everything up online. But what we did instead is we looked at the curriculum and said, well, what do we need to be, as the learning team and the learning experience? What do we actually need to be there to support the learner? But is there things that we're literally just babysitting or lecturing, or that they can actually do in their own time? So for instance, a lot of, to say, an onboarding program, the first day might make sense to be in person, because you want to build those relationships and have people there, set them up, get them used to the technologies and tools. Whereas later on, as they become more competent, and, they can find the information, if you're teaching them about a certain process, or you're teaching them a theory, where it's very much you doing the same delivery, the same information all the time. That could be easily transferred into a well-produced video, or even just a good recording, and get them to watch it, and then supplement that with, exercises afterwards, reflections and all of that. They could be really quick wins of what you can push online. Of course, you can get to the extreme of, VR and AR. And I remember at one stage having conversations with people going, should we get VR and AR headsets for our reps? And I was like, no, where's the value in that? And kind of, as someone that's big into technology and every gadget, it kills me to say it, but I knew for the learner, where there was no value in that. It was something like they were at their desks anyways. They didn't need to know that. They just needed to use the tools. So it's really just combining, and sitting down and looking at where's the quick wins, or the low hanging fruit, or whatever you want to call it. Well, what's taken up a lot of time that doesn't really need to? Is there areas where you're doing assessments? Like, they're very easy to put online, but also think of the quality of the data, the information that you get from it. So, they're often the first things as well that I would look at. You don't need a fancy suite, you don't need fancy tools to do assessments, Google Forms, Microsoft Forms as well. A lot of us would probably have, and put a thumbs up if you have any of those. They have assessments built into their forms. So you can put that up online, send it off to your learners, get them to do it, and say, come back in half an hour, and do it. And you could be doing your admin and doing your bits and pieces or whatever. Quick way to make it blended, because it's still a learning experience. They're still learning from the assessment and building out those correct assessments. So yeah, they're just some of the ways, but yeah, it's just looking at your curricula and going, what makes sense that I need to be there,
Mhm.
and what makes sense for me not to be there. Yeah, I often use the analogy. It's like driving a car. There's some things you need to sit beside the person with, and show them how to steer, show them where all the buttons are. But in terms of like reading the driving theory book and, practicing and doing learning about with all the different science and all that, do you really need to be sitting beside them? Or is it just a habit and your comfort zone to be doing that?
Hmm. Yeah, and that's really interesting. That bit of insight there. What I'm also thinking about is that obviously you're talking about the blended element to it, but also the consideration. This is also going to be new for the people that you provide training for. I just wondered, have you, in your experiences, sort of seen different behaviors to how people are, should we say, sort of say, taking on the new way of learning and training because it's an online element to it. If what experiences have you had around that, and good and bad? Because I think it's always good to learn from
Yeah.
things that don't always work so well.
Yeah, I think again, it's like the pre and post COVID. It's like when I was designing, I was always an advocate for e-learning and blended learning. And I see people there talking about hybrid learning as well. I was always a big advocate of that beforehand, before COVID. And I always saw the value in it. And I found it really hard to sell it with organizations and to see the value and to see why you're doing it. But after COVID, I think people have experienced it's like we've taken down the veil. They're like, oh, it's not that big scary thing in terms of the learner. A lot of people have experienced it in some way or another. Either, the kids, the grandkids doing it, the neighbor, I suppose even apps like Duolingo, a lot of people are doing those and they're all like bringing on that technology side. So I suppose there's less of they're less scared of that. Um, but what I do find is people, we're kind of programmed and conditioned from being in school and universities, and we still approach business learning with that mindset, which is quite different. I think that's the biggest problem, and not just in learning. I think in business in general, we're all like, when in school, this is how we learned, and this is how we taught, this is how I learned, and I'm not familiar with anything else. So when you're moving to a blended approach and moving to online modules and having then the classroom based, having a bit of both, it's about showing the value. So if you're in class and explaining to them, what to expect, having, making sure that they can access it, all those kind of anxieties that are to dissolve or mitigate against those anxieties that people have.
Mhm.
What browser do I use? I only have a laptop or I only have a tablet. I only have that. There are a lot of the issues that people, it's not actually the learning side, it's more that side. So, like in some examples, where I've experienced that is, people mightn't have the devices and are very anxious about using, especially the learners are very anxious about using that, but also the the businesses as well are very anxious about the developing content on it and very unsure about how to do it and are often looking for it has to be perfect, instead of it just has to be good enough. You have to start somewhere. Um, so yeah, it can be quite difficult to find that sweet spot, but it's really listening to your learners. A big problem a lot of people would have is like they're very comfortable delivering face to face. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if this sounds like you. They're very comfortable. Their customers are more used to delivering, um, are more used to classroom delivery. That's what they want. Your business is comfortable and delivering face to face. And then when they roll out or start moving towards a blended approach, suddenly their clients will go, we don't want this. But remember, you're marketing to a different audience as well. You're not marketing and you're not selling to people that want this. So you have to think of two potential customers as well when you're delivering and designing. And I say customers, there's customers and then the learners as well. Because if you are working with a business who's culturally like we want classroom and we're only going to buy from you to sit here because that's how we expect it to be, as opposed to, let's go after clients that are more interested in this blended search or even kind of chatting with your clients and seeing where their comfort zone and where you can roll it out. They're very different markets. And to be clear on that. And that's often a big pitfall I see businesses doing where they throw it to their existing customers without supporting them and informing them, as opposed to potentially looking at potential new markets and clients or to deliver to. Yeah, they're just some of the pitfalls. I'm sure
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot more, but
yeah,
very
yeah.
common ones, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, Kieran, what you've done it was really good as well. You've made a distinction between they are two different beast in some respects as well. Jan, I saw you just wanted to jump in there as well.
Yeah, and just to build upon what Ciara was telling about, and in the chat we've been distinguishing between hybrid and blended. So on the definition side, um, I was referring earlier to some of the research that we've been doing, and one of the research reports that we did with Oxford about blended learning adoption in among training providers in the UK found that learners love blended because there is this combination of I can do it in parts of it in my own time, and I can do parts of it. I can ask a person, the instructor or a facilitator, my questions. So that combination is perfect. Instructors also love blended learning, it appears, because all the basic things that you probably have explained 1,000 times by now, which most instructors tell me, and I found as an instructor myself when I was doing that, is the most boring part, I'll be honest with you. That basic concepts, that's what they learn online. So that's the part you can do perfectly good as a self-paced online learning. And then they come to you with their contextualized questions. Um, I get this basic concept, but how do I apply that in my particular situation? And that makes the instructor um, more of a consultant at that point. You get the interesting questions. And the third one that likes blended learning is the training company, because you know what? It's actually more profitable than uh, either online learning on its own or instructor led on its own. And that's an interesting difference because online learning on its own should be more profitable because the cost of delivery is very, very low. However, we found that for a lot of training companies that started online learning only, so digital only, um, they had a very big cost at the beginning. Now, arguably, that cost is going down because of AI tools. On the other hand, however, they had to do a lot of additional digital marketing. And if you added that into the cost of the whole delivery of online learning, actually, it was not as profitable. So, interesting distinction that we learned there. I don't know if that's also the experience of people online here, but I just wanted to add that to it.
Yeah, I think as well, Jan, you said a great point as well around the costing of it, about the cost of going online. And that's another issue that I find is people think, when I quote, and it's a horrible part, unfortunately, when I'm designing training, is you have to, excuse me, you have to cost it. And the cost can seem quite excessive, but you have to think of the repeatability of it. So, if you have a cost of designing, creating a high quality, or buying in the software and getting it developed and put online, let's say costs X amount, and then delivering it can be Y, where it seems a lot cheaper because you might be only focused on the one event. So for instance, I'm going to deliver a lesson here on blended learning, for example. I think of that as a one-off cost. But what if I was traveling, to and going on site? That could potentially cost me a full day's work. What about all the prep work to get that done? What about building all the content? What about even marketing it, because it's in person, so I might have to market it. You could put what other costs might be involved. You might have to hire the cost as well of the loss of you being able to go off and market and sell and do other stuff, because you're delivering the training, and versus what the online. I'm going with something really simple here, just even off a video talking head going through it, or simple e-learning. Okay, might be a higher cost associated, but the reusability, like that template side of it, the reusability of it, you can put that up on, there's a load of software out there that you can plug onto your website, where you can give people access to this. They can pay a couple of bucks a month or a year to get access to it, or one and done, and then they can watch it. You're getting all this data from them. Are they following all these other things? Are they going to sign up for additional classes? Are they going to then sign up for more in person? Other things that you're doing, think of the quality of it that might inform other people. Oh, I did this lesson, it's easier because they can give a link to the learning. You can also use snippets of it in your marketing material. in across social media that'll attract and bring more leads and bring more sales. So people are just looking at the costs that are very much like the tip of the iceberg on both sides, whereas they're not looking at the overall ROI. Yeah, I might invest. I'm throwing out numbers here, but they're not right. Let's say I go through, it's cost me €1,000 to create this e-learning versus, if I deliver it in person, it's only going to cost me 2 hours of my time. So that's going to be like $200. Whereas realistically, there's a lot more nuances in the ROI in there that you need to consider. And that's a big mistake I think a lot of companies make.
Yeah, and another point, just talking about costs. I mean, I've got a sales hat on as well in some respects, but when I was working with other organizations, not delivering a blended approaches, but just creating bespoke, what they saw, they got a third party to come in and create it because they didn't feel that they had the capabilities to do it. And I tell you what, the one thing that wasn't calculated in was actually the cost of their own staff to basically input into the programs, anything like that. So a hidden cost sometimes. I think we
Yeah.
looked at it from a simulated point of view. Over 20% of the charge to that organization to create it was an internal cost that was never calculated on. So this is why blended actually gives you the tools. They're immediate, and the cost point to market, Jan. I mean, there's several ways that you can actually look at that because the value and never lose the personality in your delivery, which is what I love about blended, and obviously that connected learning element to it as well. But there are different ways to basically launch your organization into the world of blended, but there is considerations of time, cost, resources, and everything like that. But there's so many different ways you can actually get it there that's cost effective. And I think that's why I see as a Missio is quite uniquely placed in working and advising with training providers as well. So, but I think what I'd like to do is open this out a little bit more so and perhaps challenge Ciara a little bit. So, have we got anyone in the audience that is would like to perhaps unmute themselves that hasn't actually perhaps created some blended programs currently and is thinking about it and perhaps some of the challenges they feel that they may have, and perhaps we can talk to that. So, have we got anyone that would like to uh, tell us a little bit about their story and perhaps where they would like to get to, and perhaps we can use this session and share and collaborate. Has anyone got any questions for Ciara at that point? If we're not, I can sing. So I'm encouraging you to ask a question.
But
So,
instead of you thinking, I just added a little bit there, it's okay to experiment. You don't have to put like if you're not sure about experiment, put one thing online. You can still offer it in person, so don't worry, it's not like you can still have both ways. So don't feel just because it's gone online, you can never deliver it in person. Uh Experiment, play around with it, find your comfort zone.
yeah.
So I know some people might have the anxieties and
Okay.
maybe don't have the time or the resources, but it's
Well,
okay to
yeah,
experiment.
to talk across you there. So Janice, welcome to this event today. And we would love to hear where you are today and perhaps we can share and collaborate.
Right, okay. Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm based in Madrid. I'm British, but based in Madrid. I've been living here for 30 years. And I have a very small training company. I have a very small team. It's mainly me doing all the training.
Mhm.
And I specialize in presentation skills and public speaking skills for mainly for non-natives here in Spain and in Europe as well. So I've been doing, obviously, face to face, and then with COVID, it was online, and now it's a bit of both. It tends to be one-to-ones online, but now companies, my typical clients are multinationals, and they're for group training courses, they're moving back to face to face. And so I'm really curious to find out about blended. And my question is, I mean, really, what I'm seeing here, it is really opening my mind, and I want to find out more about it, is with blended and blended templates, etc. Is it are they independent resources, or would you need some sort of platform to be working with to make the experience more blended?
Mhm.
Yeah, a great question. I think that's what it is. It's about the platform and the ease of it and what you want from the platform. I think
Mm.
that's critical. There's loads out there. And I could chat to you offline about some of the common ones if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. Um, uh, and I'm not partnered with any of them. I just know from just working with different ones. And it's really about finding what suits your learners and what data you want from it, you know, of where you host things. Because again, I see a lot of people going, oh, we're on a WordPress site, we're website, so we have to have it on WordPress. It has to be a WordPress plugin. But you're like, no, it just needs to have a subaddress that'll just link to it. You know, you want to make it quite easy for people to go in there. There's a lot of really complex systems out there that people will push, you know, because they're salespeople as well. But you want something that's really nice and simple to use, and that will give you the data. They're the two criteria I would always look at. And what I put up there, you know, it supplements their learning. So a lot of the presentation skills, you know, I would totally agree. There's probably a lot of in person because it's about their tone and their voice, but there's no reason they can't record it and then send it on to you for you to review, get your team to do it. Because it sounds like you're really caught in the delivery as opposed to the business development of it. So there's innovative ways to do that. There's one piece of software that I've worked with in the past where you can bring them through, and what it'll do is they record a video or upload a presentation, and then what you can do is there's a rubric that you, when I say you or your team, and you can actually like make sure that everything is marked correctly. And you know, that frees again up your time. So if you could train your team into doing that. And when I say your team, you know, teams can be offshored as well. You know, there's some great resources out there to bring in other you know, to free up your time, and that might be more cost effective as well. So it's thinking outside the box. And I think that's the biggest problem when it comes to blended learning. People are looking at the technology and not what they want to do and achieve. And I think it's flipping that and sitting down, well, this is what I'm doing now. This is how I do it. I need the technology to do this. Not saying I have WordPress website. I have to correct assignments. How do I do that? And I think that's where people get bogged down in the blended learning and the scalability of it. And then they're you know, tied into a year-long contract, probably a big implementation to get it attached and all of this. And next thing they're stuck and they're like, oh, it doesn't work. It's only because the needs analysis, if we go with the learning terms, has been just done incorrectly. So really focus on what you want from the system, how it's going to help the learner, and then find the technology rather than the technology first. And that might help. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds really common sense and attractive. And I think simplicity is key because, you know, user friendly, that's key on behalf of the learners and the instructors as well. And yeah, something that's sort of simple that can be incorporated, that at the end of the day, it's always about satisfying the learner's needs. And that will make the whole learning experience much more interesting and engaging. That's the thing. It has to be engaging as well.
100%.
Yeah, Janice, just on your point as well, and a key thing that we find as well, when we're talking to business owners of training organizations and doing that first step as well, is make sure that you test it with your target audience and make sure you can actually validate the process. So as Ciara was saying, no, don't buy it because it's got all these shiny buttons on there or something like that, but buy a system you can actually use, test and validate before you actually make any form of commitment as well. We found that actually then that reinforces your own ideas. You've actually got the measurements that you think about and you can test it and validate it. There's some really interesting ways of thinking about it from a business perspective. And I know we moved a little bit away from the templates, but if I link it in with the templates, you always have to do reflection as well, build that into your templates as you go through. But Jan, I could see you were pursed to come in there as well.
Yeah, just to build upon that, till about a year or 2 years ago, I would have said that, or I would have, I saw in the market that the content side and platform side were two different things. There were two different decisions for a training provider or actually any organization to buy, and they weren't related so much. People bought a platform for the platform and content for the content. However, because all the things we've now learned about how people learn, there's more and more available on how people learn in different situations, and technology has been helping that learning. So I think that now content and platform are actually part of one decision that a training provider would make, because some content, let's a simple example. If you want to put in spaced repetition or adaptivity within personalization for your learner within the learning, then there are platforms that can help you with that, or you can build it into the content. But if you build it into the content already, you don't need a platform that does that as well. So you would buy double things. So not to complicate things, but it makes it a bit looking around for the right platform, the right content. This, what is your design and delivery mode of training? It makes it a bit more planned. And as Kira nicely said already, it's not about the technology so much. Actually, this is something we learned as well. I started out as a reseller of a New Spring, the platform that is. So I'm a little bit biased here. However, we started this in 2018, and very quickly we actually found out by marketing this platform to training providers, it's not about the technology. Actually, most of the calls that we got from people that said, I need a platform, after 10 minutes of talking, our answer was actually no, you need a marketing plan first, and then you need a platform. So um, there is a lot of that thinking and planning beforehand. And this is something actually we do quite a lot of, not as a chargeable thing or something. I'm not trying to sell here. We're helping quite a lot of organizations also in different situations with, okay, let's think it through what you actually want to do, and then you can decide yourself what is good for you. And that's I think that's an important part.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Janice, thank you so much for that question. I'm just conscious of time as well, but I would love to see if anyone else has got any other questions for us actually to take, and how we can perhaps weave that into being a blended template. But the template, I think, is very much that structured approach to everything that we're talking about today. So, yeah, has anyone else got any other questions? Because I know I have a few other questions that people have sent me beforehand. It probably actually touched a little bit on Janice as well, is actually about the use of video. Um, Now, what I've actually, a few people have said, like, I have trouble creating video. Is it? And so I actually went back to them and said, what is it you're trying to do? He said, well, I think people try to feel that everything has to be perfect. And sometimes, no, it's better that you have, I said earlier about when you look at putting a blended program together, don't forget that you need to put your personality into this, because that's what people buy into as well. But I don't know if anyone's had any experiences of using video in their training delivery or anything like that. But Ciara, have you seen any good practices, in blended, obviously with the use of video? And does it help? Does it hinder? Does it create barriers?
It it depends. It's the big one, isn't it? That
Yeah,
everyone kind of, it depends. Videos are great, but you have to think of what they're doing. It is a passive activity, no more than this learning and videos, reading, getting people and try to get them to do it. I do some lecturing down in a university as well, and I know probably some of those recorded lectures are at 1.55 speed, so they get the little tick mark at the end to say I've watched it, you know. So where you need to think about is, and this is where blended learning and again having templates to incorporate into it is very good, is the use of activities to supplement the video. Like a video just, we're living in a world where everything is TikTok size, small hits, small bits, less than 2 minutes going in there, people watching on their phones and videos while traveling. We're in that era now. So, those videos, that's the type of videos as well that we're seeing more engagement, but they do something with it afterwards. It's this strategy from a guy called, I promised I wouldn't get into theory, called Horton, but it's an absorb, do, connect is kind of the strategy I do. So I absorb the information in a particular way, let's say in this video, but I connect it with something and I do something with it. And that's where your videos will have impact. You could have the worst video, of, even like, I don't know if you see my cat crawling behind me here, of all of that. And you can have the best high produced video, but if they're not doing anything with it, if they're just passively going in there, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. And I know I'd always say I'm the worst learner there is, because I could not only do I critique people's learnings, but I'm also the most distracted because I'm focused more on how it was delivered. So don't be worried about your video and the production and how well it is and that you have like this green screen and what we see influencers doing. I'm telling you, if you look at their earlier videos, they're not that smooth, you know. Look at what you deliver in small chunks, but they're doing something with it. And that's where your platform comes in. So you can host the video, get them to do a reflection afterwards, get them to put their comments in. Maybe multiple choice question. Camtasia is great for that, that you can actually build that in. Um, that are they going to share information, or maybe you're going to meet up in a blended format, online or in person, where you could talk about, we watched this video and I love this, sharing a TED talk even, so something that relates. Going back to the presentation one, there's a guy called David JP Phillips, I think is his name. He's brilliant, but he's supplement and he has his video on presentations and having something to do with it afterwards. And his content has a lot, how are you going to work it and how are you going to do it? That's where the value is. It's not the video. And I'm telling you that we've all watched different videos, but the ones that make the biggest connection is where you're left with a thought, you're left with a thing, you're left with doing something. Like how many videos have we all watched in the past day, 2 days? Probably, I don't know if I'm guilty of the old. I'm a YouTube short woman, but I can guarantee a very few left me learning something. But if I watch a short video with something to do afterwards and can connect it, that's where sweet sauce is, or the sweet spot is.
Perfect stuff. So I think yes, no, and maybe then is the answer.
I think it's do your video, don't worry about it, but it's what you do with it afterwards. It's the connection and make sure that reinforces the learning. So even the micro videos, having one learning objective in there and focusing on that. And then like you can use these as marketing materials. Don't forget that you can give people like little snippets, and drive people like this inbound marketing because it's not all about like your learners are great, but when they've learned, you have to attract more in. So see these as marketing materials as well. How can you leverage this in little snippets? What data can you see? Can you see how long people are engaged in the videos? Have they learned from it, from the analysis of the learning results?
Mhm.
You get this holistic view that a lot of the time in classroom-based learning or face to face or on Zoom calls and things like that, that often don't land as well. I don't because we all have different delivery and some people are fantastic and there's all different methods, but you get more bang for your buck, I suppose, if when you think of it in a holistic way.
Yeah, yeah. Ciara, as well, you just made a really interesting point that I recall, Jan. We had a training provider we were working with actually, and she was concerned about her launch. So what she did, she actually did her launch online. And what then she did is actually was able to use that resource to tell her story because
Yeah.
I talk about being personable in your identity of your training, but also the fact you've got to be authentic to yourself as well. And what the lady did had a very small organization just starting out on the road, but then she didn't have a lot of resources. I said, but actually you've got a community around you. Get them to basically join your launch party, record it, share it, and bite it up and repurpose that later on because it was her identity and her target audience. So I think all the great things you can do, but don't lose the perspective of who you are as a person, as a business, and what are your business objectives. Jan, I know we're closing up, but have you got any sort of final sort of thoughts to share with everybody on the call today?
No, I think that we talked through it nicely. It's always the first question is the definition. I hope we have been able to address that, give some ideas. If people want to have a look at the links that you shared, Paul, thank you very
Yeah.
much for doing that. And have any questions, we're always very happy to just talk it through, be a soundboard, see if we can help you that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and those resources I'm just putting in there as well, that they have stayed the test of time. So they're free resources, but just have a look through them. And as I always say, when we do all these events, you know what? The objective today is for you to find out, to learn something new that you didn't know before we started the session. Hopefully, you've had a bit of a smile on your face and actually enjoyed it and love to come back next month when we do our next one in this series. If there's any other questions, we're more than happy to stay online and take them. But thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, I'm finishing with a smile on my face, so I've met my objectives. I hope you've met your objectives. If you haven't, contact us afterwards and we'll see how we can help you out. Today, thank you so much. Have a lovely remainder of the week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.